Сайн байцгаана уу хүн төлөвчтэй. Өнөөдөр манай Defacto нэвтрүүлгийг Азербайджаны Баку хотод хийж байна. Миний хойно Каспийн тэнгис. Өнөөдөр манай нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор КАМКА гэж байгууллага. Central Asia, Mongolia, Caucasus, Афганистан энэ нийлбэрээр КАМКА байгууллагын үндэслэн байгуулагч түүний туулзынхан дарга Др.Фредрих Старр оролцож байна.
Др.Фредрих Старр Төв Ази бүс нутгийн институтийн үүсгэн байгуулагч. Др.Фредрих Старр нь Америкийн нэгдсэн улсын Йелийн их сургууль, Кембрижийн их сургууль болон Принстоны их сургуулийг тус төгссөн. Тэрээр Төв Ази Оросын улс төр гадаад бодлого, бүс нутгийн эрчим хүчний бодлогын судлалаар мэргэшсэн. Мөн тэрээр Орос Евразийн асуудлаар 20 гаруй ном, 200 гаруй нийтлэлийг хэвлүүлсэн. Тэрээр Америкийн нэгдсэн улсын 3 ерөнхийлөгчийн Орос Евразийн асуудал хариуцсан зөвлөхөөр ажиллаж байжээ.
Nice meeting you.
Honored to be here.
So in Baku we had this meeting of КАМКА. Please tell us about КАМКА. What is this and why we are here?
This is a word that did not exist a couple of years ago. It was invented by participants in our exchange program where we bring together young leaders from all over Central Asia, CA, M, Mongolia, C, Caucasus, and A, Afghanistan, CAMCA, КАМКА.
Okay. So the organization was founded?
It's now 10 years old, and it grew out of a project of the Central Asia Caucasus Institute in Washington and Stockholm, and the Rumsfeld Foundation, which our former Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, founded. And this is a collaboration of these two institutions.
What is the main function and purpose of this organization?
Well, everyone has been impressed by the quality, intellectual, personal, of rising generation across this region. And these are very talented people, but they emerged at a time where each country was focusing only on itself. And the purpose of this program is first to give them some kind of link and contact with the United States. They come to America for 6 weeks and have an opportunity to meet with many public figures. But more important, they then return to their countries, and they themselves, the former participants, began having meetings, alumni meetings, and these then evolved into a general meeting, which became КАМКА.
How the people are selected?
They are nominated by people in their country, officials, leaders, educators, journalists, scientists, or by the former fellows. They can nominate. Then there is a selection process, and it's a remarkable group of people, very impressive.
I saw several Mongolians. How many Mongolians altogether?
Well, Mongolia was not initially in the group, nor was really Afghanistan came in too. But Mongolians every year now have 2 or 3, so I think it's around 20 from Mongolia. All, I must say, not just very talented, but wonderful people.
Very impressive young leaders are emerging in this part of the world, and I was wondering, participating in your conference, it is kind of conversation or dialogue between countries from Central Asia, Caucasus, all the way to Mongolia.
Yes.
And this is not always happening.
Not since Marco Polo.
Since Marco Polo. Speaking about Marco Polo, you have released interesting book, Lost Enlightenment.
Yes.
In which you said Central Asia was the world center. Why?
The thesis is very simple of this book, Lost Enlightenment. That is, for about at least 500 years, the economic center of the world in terms of trade, in terms of wealth, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of major cities, was Central Asia. Wider Central Asia, including Afghanistan, so it's a bigger territory. And that this economic prosperity created a wonderful environment for intellectual activity, and during that period, the greatest mathematicians, philosophers, astronomers, medical people, and experts in many fields, the greatest in the world, emerged in Central Asia. And they led the world between ancient Greece and Rome and modern Europe. The biggest flowering of culture, of intellect, occurred in Central Asia.
During Genghis Khan time, 13th century,
Yes.
the several roads, later called Silk Roads,
Yes.
were established and they were used by those people who you are talking about. Nowadays we are talking in particular another road called Road and Belt initiative started from China. How do you find that will impact on the way these countries are cooperating?
Well, let me say a word about the original Silk Road.
Okay.
It wasn't Silk Road, it was Silk Roads.
Roads.
And it connected, these routes connected, first of all, India with the West, and then second, China with the West. It wasn't just China, India and China with the West. And it was the Central Asians who were right in the middle. So interestingly, the only people who were in direct contact with all the centers of civilization, India, China, Europe, Middle East, were the Central Asians. Now, the difference between this old Silk Roads and the Chinese initiative is that the Chinese initiative is coming from outside the region, whereas the original Silk Roads were developed by the region itself. And also the Belt Road, One Belt, One Road initiative focuses on connecting China with the world, but does not deal with India. And by India, I mean Indian subcontinent. And of course, we know with the booming population, high rate of growth, economic growth right now, that they will one day be a bigger center even than China. So we have to think ahead. We want to work with the Belt and Road Initiative, but at the same time, we want to think ahead to how do we reconnect with India.
See, now with the coming, this big project, Road and Belt Road, and the impact of China and Russia are going to be even more than now. How these countries consider themselves under this influence?
I'm not sure that their impact will increase. I think Russia's has been steadily going down. Why? Not because they're weak or making mistakes, but because Central Asians are taking responsibility for their own life. This is a positive reason. It's not against China, it's not against Russia, or against Europe or America or India. It is for Central Asia. And they are increasingly saying, look, we are not just passive small people that you cross our territory. We have our own interests, our own history, our own needs, and we work with each other within the region, and they are asking all outside powers to cooperate with them as a group.
I see. But however, all these roads will go through Russia to Europe.
No, one will go through Russia. All the others go directly from one from China right across Kazakhstan to the Caspian Sea, and then from the Caspian to Baku, where we're sitting, and then across the Caucasus through Georgia to Turkey. The second one will, the northern route is Russia. It's the old route, the old railroad, but much more active will be the central route from China west, or from Europe east to China. The third route is the one from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that goes both west, again, right through the Caspian and the Caucasus to Europe and Turkey and Europe. And also it will go east all the way to Hanoi. So you could say Hamburg, Hanoi.
You have been working with Canon Institute, Aspen Institute. You speak Russian. You studied Russian politics, economics for quite some time. How do you see a Russian impact on these countries, former Soviet Union countries, in terms of, say, current changes now? Russia, there is a power longer staying there.
Well, think of it this way. For 100 years, all Central Asia and the Caucasus were under colonial rule from Russia. And there was an influence, there were positive things that occurred, and there were negative things. Now they are sovereign, independent states. And think of it this way, that they were living in a room which had one door and one window to Moscow. Since independence, they've opened new doors in every direction, and they've opened new windows. And this is natural. It was inevitable. It is not against anyone. It is for the Central Asians. So if you're in Kyrgyzstan in 2018, you have now direct contact with the whole world. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is wonderful. It's an opportunity not only for them, but the rest of the world, because you have talented people in Kyrgyzstan, and you have in every other country. So I think the big challenge is for the big powers to understand this process and not to attack it or try to prevent it, but to welcome it.
Which is not happening. And Russia now, the war in Ukraine now, the war that was in Georgia, and there's still a lot of conflicts. And how do you see it will go down the road?
The Soviet experience ended in 1991, but there continues to be a kind of hangover. And this hangover, like any hangover, continues for a while, but gradually it will vanish, and I think normal relations will be established. But in the meanwhile, Russia continues to hold on to impossible dreams from the past. It's not looking forward, it's trying to return to the past. This will not work in the end, and in the end, a different Russia will emerge that is, I think, a good neighbor and that is prepared to live within its borders.
It will take time. How long you think?
I don't know. I think it depends on what the other powers do. I think it depends also on what the Central Asians themselves do.
Exactly. That's why you had a military base in Uzbekistan, then the power changed somehow. Then you had in Kyrgyzstan, Russians had military base in Kyrgyzstan.
But both of those Western bases, and they were based on NATO, not just the United States. Both these bases were simply to serve the campaign in Afghanistan. They were not to control either of those two countries, and in both cases they left. But the Russians are fixated on military control and they have added bases, The Chinese have added a base in Tajikistan. So this is not positive.
Exactly.
There's an alternative, and that is to strengthen Central Asian countries so they can preserve their own sovereignty and not have it done by any outside power. I don't want American bases. I don't want Russian bases. I don't want Chinese bases. I don't want Indian bases, European bases. Let the Central Asians live their own lives.
Yeah, and for that still they have to face this sort of intervention from outside, and it will take longer time, huh?
This is an education process. I think that the United States, Europe, China have to educate Russia that, look, these people aren't against you. They are for themselves. Let them be. They can build security for the entire region best from within. And any effort to build security from the outside will fail. Even the Mongols, in the end, they were not able to build long-term security from the outside. Ultimately, local powers took over, and I think the big choice right now in the 21st century is, will the big powers allow the sovereign states of Central Asia and the Caucasus to take control of their own lives, just the way the big powers want to take control of their own lives? Or will they try to prevent it and to impose control from the outside? This is, of course, the same problem that Mongolia faces, which is one of the reasons why it makes sense for Mongolia to be participating in this dialogue that is CAMCA, C-A-M-C-A.
Recently, Shanghai Organization of Cooperation, our presidents have we will upgrade our membership. How do you see Mongolia participation in the Shanghai Organization? Is it a good thing? What is about this organization?
It's not a good thing or a bad thing yet, but Mongolians are very clever people, and I don't think they make a decision like this carelessly. And I'm sure they believe that the Shanghai Organization is fundamentally changing with the admission of India. And there is an ancient and deep relationship, after all, Mongolia and India. I assume that they believe that the Shanghai Organization is going to become truly multipolar, and that it's not going to just be a branch of Chinese foreign policy.
Last question about the youth, young people. You had a wonderful 3 ambassadors of this region who were in Washington, D.C. It looks like you had a long relationship with them, and they have been enhancing education and inspiration of young people. What you would say to young Mongolians? Just be what you are. The young Mongolians whom I have met and who have participated in this CAMCA are a remarkable group of men and women. They are in government, they are in business, they are in journalism, they're in every field, and they have a big view. It's inevitable that Mongolians have a big view because you have to survive. And they really do have a big view. They're well educated. They have natural leadership qualities. We're all deeply impressed with them, and we want only to open a door so they can participate more actively in Central Asian affairs, and people in other countries of Central Asia will have a closer link with Mongolia. That link did not exist until now. Yes, exactly. That's why we appreciate what you do. And I would like to thank you from Mongolian alumni of KAMKA and future alumni of KAMKA for the job you are doing. It's a great help to Mongolia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. За хүн төлөвчтэй та бүхэн KAMKA байгууллагыг үүсгэн байгуулагч туулзынхын дарга профессор ноён Starr та хийсэн ярилцлагыг үзлээ. Их баярлалаа.